Laura Bennett had worked on Galactic Trade Station Meridian for 12 years. She had seen many strange things in that time. She had met aliens with 10 legs. She had talked to beings made of living crystal. She had once helped repair a ship that traveled through dimensions instead of space. But nothing had prepared her for what walked into her equipment bay on that quiet Tuesday morning. The alien was small, very small. She stood barely 3 feet tall, and her body was covered in scales that changed color as Laura watched. The scales shifted from pale blue to silver to soft green, like the surface of a soap bubble catching the light. She had 4 eyes, all of them the color of amber, and they were wide with fear. Her 6-fingered hands gripped the doorframe so hard that Laura could see them shaking. Laura set down the tool she had been working with. Beside her, Danny Ochoa looked up from his computer screen. Danny was the chief engineer on this section of the station, and he had been Laura's partner and friend for almost 8 years. They had solved many problems together. They had saved lives together. But neither of them had ever seen an alien quite like this one. "Human Bennett," the small alien said. Her voice came through a translator device attached to her collar, making it sound flat and mechanical. "I need help. Private help, please." Laura stood up slowly, not wanting to scare the creature. "Come in," she said gently. "Close the door behind you. Tell us what's wrong." The alien looked behind her, checking the corridor, then stepped fully into the equipment bay. The door slid shut with a soft hiss. Only then did she seem to relax a little, though her scales kept flickering nervously. "My name is Kira Veth," she said, "but you may call me Kira. I am a xenobiologist from the Velith Consortium. I came to this station 3 months ago as part of a cultural exchange program." Laura nodded. She had heard about the exchange program. The Velith were a species that humanity had only recently made contact with. They were known for being very private about their biology and customs. Not much information about them existed in the station's database. "What kind of help do you need, Kira?" Danny asked. He had moved closer, his face showing concern. Kira's 4 eyes darted between the 2 humans. She seemed to be making a decision. Finally, she spoke. "I am entering my volatile cycle. It was not supposed to happen for another 3 years. Something has triggered it early, and I have no access to Velith stabilization technology. Without help, I will die." The words hung in the air like a cold wind. Laura felt her stomach tighten. She did not know what a volatile cycle was, but she understood the fear in Kira's voice. This was not a small problem. "Tell us everything," Laura said. "We want to help, but we need to understand." Kira took a deep breath. When she spoke again, her voice was calmer, but still edged with fear. "The Velith are not like humans," she began. "We are partially electromagnetic beings. Our nervous systems generate complex field patterns that control everything about us. Our thoughts, our emotions, even the way our bodies hold together. Without these fields, we would simply fall apart." Danny's eyes went wide. "You're held together by electromagnetic fields?" "In a way, yes. It is more complicated than that, but that is the simple explanation. Every few years, a Velith must go through what we call the volatile cycle. During this time, our field patterns become unstable. They break down and rebuild themselves in a new configuration. It is a natural process, like the way human children grow into adults, but it is also very dangerous." Laura was starting to understand. "Dangerous how?" Kira's scales flickered to a pale gray color. Laura guessed that meant she was afraid. "During the volatile cycle, our electromagnetic fields fluctuate wildly. Without proper stabilization, these fluctuations grow stronger and stronger until the field pattern collapses completely. When that happens, the Velith ceases to exist. We do not die in the way humans understand death. We simply come apart, scatter, become nothing. The equipment bay was very quiet. Laura could hear the soft hum of the station's life support systems. She could hear Danny's breathing beside her. She could hear her own heart beating in her chest. "How long do you have?" she asked. "Perhaps 40 hours, perhaps less. The early triggering has made everything unpredictable." Danny was already moving to his computer. "There must be something in the database, some information about Velith biology that can help us." "There is very little," Kira said sadly. "My people are private. We do not share our medical knowledge with outsiders. I should not even be telling you this, but I have no choice. The nearest Velith ship is more than 60 hours away. The stabilization equipment I need does not exist on this station. If I do not find another solution, I will not survive." Laura looked at Danny. He looked back at her. In that moment, they did not need to speak. They had been partners for too long. They both knew what they were going to do. "We're going to help you," Laura said firmly. "I don't know how yet, but we're not going to let you die. Not if there's anything we can do to stop it." Kira stared at her. All 4 of her amber eyes were wet with something that might have been tears. "You do not understand," she said. "Your technology is not designed for Velith biology. It cannot work. The frequencies are wrong. The calibrations are wrong. Everything is wrong." Laura smiled. It was the kind of smile that Danny had seen many times before. The kind of smile that meant she had already decided to do something impossible. "Maybe," Laura said, "but humans are pretty good at making things work that aren't supposed to work. That's kind of our specialty." She turned to Danny. "Pull up everything we have on electromagnetic field generation, especially the portable radiation shielding units, the ones we use for hull repairs near the reactor." Danny's face lit up with understanding. "The Faraday suits. They generate localized EM fields to protect against cosmic radiation." "Exactly. They're designed to create an electromagnetic envelope around a human body. Maybe we can modify them to work for Kira." Kira shook her head, but there was something new in her eyes, something that looked almost like hope. "It will not work," she said. "It cannot work." Laura walked over to the equipment locker and pulled out one of the radiation suits. It was bulky and covered with cables and sensors. It looked nothing like the elegant technology that other species used. It was simple. It was crude. It was very, very human. "Let's find out," Laura said. The next several hours were the hardest Danny Ochoa had ever worked in his life. He sat at his computer, running calculations over and over again, trying to understand the problem they were facing. Laura worked beside him, taking apart the radiation suit piece by piece, studying each component as if it held the secrets of the universe. Kira sat in the corner of the equipment bay, wrapped in a thermal blanket. Her scales had gone mostly gray now, and every few minutes, tiny sparks of static electricity would jump from her skin to the metal floor. The volatile cycle was getting worse. "Okay," Danny said, rubbing his tired eyes. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly. Your electromagnetic field is like, a pattern, right? A specific arrangement of frequencies and wavelengths that makes you who you are?" Kira nodded weakly. "Yes. Every Velith has a unique field pattern. It is like what you would call a fingerprint, but much more important. It is not just identification. It is existence itself. And during the volatile cycle, this pattern becomes unstable. It breaks down completely and reforms into a new configuration. It is natural. It is supposed to happen. But the transition period is very dangerous. Without a stabilizing field to contain the fluctuations, the pattern can scatter before it has a chance to reform." Laura looked up from the tangle of wires in her hands. So what we need to do is create a kind of container, an electromagnetic envelope that holds your field together while it's rebuilding itself. Yes, but the frequencies must be precisely calibrated. The strength must be exactly right. Too weak, and it will not contain the fluctuations. Too strong, and it will interfere with the reformation process. Velith stabilization technology takes years to develop and requires extensive knowledge of the individual's field pattern. Danny leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. The problem seemed impossible. They were trying to do in a few hours what Velith scientists spent years perfecting. They did not have the right equipment. They did not have the right knowledge. They did not even have the right species of brain. But then he looked at Kira, shivering in her blanket, sparks dancing across her gray scales, and he knew they had to try. The radiation suits, he said slowly, thinking out loud. They create an adaptive field. They don't just generate one frequency, they scan for incoming radiation and automatically adjust to counter it. Laura's eyes lit up. You're right. They're designed to respond to whatever the environment throws at them. Maybe we can modify that adaptive function to respond to Kira's fluctuations instead of radiation. But how do we calibrate it for Velith biology? Danny asked. We don't know what frequencies we're looking for? They both looked at Kira. She looked back at them with tired eyes. I can give you readings, she said. My translator device has a basic medical scanner built in. It monitors my vital signs, including my electromagnetic output. The data will not be complete, but it might be enough to start. For the next 3 hours, they worked together in a way that felt almost like a dance. Kira provided data from her scanner. Danny fed the numbers into his computer, building a mathematical model of Velith field dynamics. Laura modified the radiation suit, rewiring its sensors and adjusting its field generators based on Danny's calculations. It was slow work, frustrating work. Many times they hit dead ends and had to start over. The suit was designed to protect humans from cosmic radiation, not to stabilize an alien's electromagnetic existence. Every component had to be changed. Every setting had to be recalibrated. But slowly, piece by piece, they made progress. Around hour 15, Laura realized they needed more parts. The suit's original power supply was not strong enough for what they needed. She left Danny with Kira and went searching through the station's storage areas, collecting components from anywhere she could find them. She came back with parts from 2 other radiation suits, a medical scanner, a portable generator, and, somewhat strangely, a coffee maker. Danny stared at the coffee maker. What's that for? The heating element, Laura said. It creates a secondary oscillation that might help smooth out the field transitions. I read about something similar in an engineering paper once. It's a long shot, but we need every advantage we can get. Danny laughed. It was a tired laugh, but genuine. Only you would think of using a coffee maker to save an alien's life. Hey, whatever works. By hour 20, they had a prototype. It looked nothing like the original radiation suit. Wires and cables ran everywhere. The coffee maker's heating element had been woven into the suit's lining, surrounded by copper tubing that Danny had salvaged from the station's cooling system. Sensors from the medical scanner covered the inside of the suit, ready to monitor Kira's electromagnetic output in real time. It was ugly. It was crude. It looked like something a child might build from spare parts found in a junkyard. But when Danny ran the simulations, the numbers came back positive. I think it might work, he said, his voice quiet with disbelief. I actually think it might work. Kira looked at the modified suit with all 4 of her eyes. Her scales flickered weakly, barely changing color at all now. She was getting weaker. They were running out of time. The frequencies are not perfect, she said. The calibration is rough. There are many things that could go wrong. We know, Laura said. but it's the best chance we have. Will you try it? Kira was silent for a long moment. Outside the equipment bay, the station hummed with life. Thousands of beings from dozens of species went about their daily business, unaware that in this small room, a life hung in the balance. Finally, Kira nodded. "I will try," she said. "If I am going to die, I would rather die trying than waiting." Laura helped her stand up. The small alien's legs were shaky, and she had to lean against the human for support. But her 4 amber eyes were clear and determined. "Whatever happens," Kira said softly, "I want you to know that I am grateful. No Velith would have expected humans to help like this. No Velith would have believed it was possible." Laura squeezed her hand gently. "Let's prove them wrong." Getting Kira into the modified suit was one of the most difficult things Laura had ever done. The small alien's electromagnetic field was now fluctuating so badly that it interfered with everything around her. Computer screens flickered when she walked past them. The lights in the equipment bay dimmed and brightened in random patterns. Twice Laura had to back away when her own equipment started malfunctioning from the interference. Danny watched the readings on his screen with growing worry. "Her field is destabilizing faster than we expected. We need to hurry." Laura worked as quickly as she could while still being gentle. Kira's scales had gone almost completely white now, and her 4 eyes were half closed with exhaustion. Every movement seemed to cost her enormous effort. "Almost there," Laura said softly. "Just a little more." She sealed the last connection and stepped back. Kira stood in the middle of the equipment bay, wrapped in the ugly patchwork suit. Cables ran from the suit to Danny's computer, allowing him to monitor everything in real time. The coffee maker's heating element glowed softly through the suit's fabric, creating a warm orange light. "Ready?" Danny asked, his finger hovering over the activation switch. Kira nodded weakly. Danny pressed the switch. For 3 terrible seconds, nothing happened. The suit hummed quietly. But Kira's readings showed no change. Laura felt her heart sink. They had tried their best with their primitive human technology, and it had not been enough. They had failed. Then Kira gasped. It was a strange sound, coming through as a burst of static from her translator. Her eyes went wide, and her scales suddenly exploded with color, shifting through blues and greens and purples so fast that Laura could barely follow. "It's working," Kira said, her voice filled with wonder. "I can feel it. The field is stabilizing. The fluctuations they're dampening. They're actually dampening." Danny stared at his screen in disbelief. "The readings confirm it. The suit is generating a counterfield that's matching her fluctuations almost perfectly. It's not as precise as Velith technology would be, but it's working." Laura let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. Her legs felt weak, and she had to lean against the wall for support. They had done it. They had actually done it, but they were not out of danger yet. "How long does the volatile cycle last?" Laura asked. Kira's translator crackled for a moment before responding. "Normally between 12 and 20 hours, but with the early triggering, I do not know for certain. It could be shorter, it could be longer." Danny was already running calculations. "The suit's power supply should last about 25 hours at current output. That gives us some margin, but not much. I'll need to make adjustments throughout the process to keep the counterfield synchronized with your changing electromagnetic signature." The next several hours were tense, but steady. Danny sat at his computer, watching the readings like a hawk. Every few minutes, he would make tiny adjustments to the suit's settings, keeping the counter field perfectly matched to Kira's fluctuating pattern. It was delicate work, requiring constant attention and quick reflexes. Laura stayed by Kira's side. The small alien could not move much while wearing the suit, so Laura brought her water and food. She talked to her, keeping her calm, keeping her distracted from the pain. Because there was pain. Laura could see it in the way Kira's eyes tightened, in the way her six-fingered hands gripped the edge of the table. The volatile cycle was not just an electromagnetic event. It was a physical transformation, and like all transformations, it hurt. "Tell me about your world," Laura said during a quiet moment. "Tell me about the Velith." Kira was silent for a moment, then began to speak. Her voice was soft, and the translator gave it an almost dreamlike quality. "We live in floating cities," she said. "Our planet has very strong electromagnetic currents that flow through the atmosphere. Our cities ride these currents, drifting across the sky like boats on a sea. From the ground, they look like islands made of light." Laura tried to imagine it. Cities of light, floating through an alien sky. It was beautiful. "I have 3 siblings," Kira continued, "all older than me. They have all already passed through their volatile cycles. My oldest sister's transformation was the most dramatic. She went in with silver scales and came out with scales the color of sunset. Our mother cried when she saw her. Happy tears or sad tears? Both, I think. The volatile cycle changes us, not just physically, but in other ways too. After the transformation, we see the world differently. We think differently. We are still ourselves, but we are also new. It is hard to explain." Laura nodded slowly. "It sounds like growing up. Humans go through something similar. Not as dramatic, but the same idea. We change as we get older. We become different versions of ourselves." Kira's scales shifted to a soft blue color. Laura had learned to recognize this as a sign of calm, of peace. "I volunteered for the exchange program because I wanted to understand humans," Kira said. "My people think you are strange. You cannot sense the electromagnetic spectrum. You cannot feel the currents that connect all things. You are blind in ways we cannot imagine. And yet you have spread across the galaxy faster than any species in history. I wanted to know how. I wanted to know why." "And what have you learned?" Kira was quiet for a long moment. Outside, the station's night cycle had begun. The lights in the corridor dimmed to simulate evening. Somewhere in the distance, Laura could hear the sound of other station residents going about their lives. "I have learned that you adapt," Kira said finally. "You take things that were designed for one purpose and make them do something else. You solve problems that should not be solvable with the tools you have. It is strange. It is frightening. And it is beautiful." Laura smiled. "We just do what we have to do." "No," Kira said. "It is more than that. You do not just survive. You help. You helped me, even though you had no reason to. Even though your technology was not designed for my biology, even though you had never seen a Velith volatile cycle before, you helped anyway." Laura did not know what to say, so she just reached out and held Kira's small hand. And together they watched the station's artificial stars come out in the simulated night sky. The crisis came at hour 14. Danny had been watching the readings carefully, making adjustments as needed, keeping the counterfield synchronized with Kira's changing electromagnetic pattern. Everything had been going well. The suit was working better than they had hoped. Kira's vital signs were stable. It seemed like they were going to make it. Then, without warning, the readings spiked. "Something's wrong," Danny said, his voice tight with sudden fear. "Her fluctuations just doubled in intensity. The suit can't keep up." Laura jumped to her feet. "What happened?" "I don't know. This wasn't in any of the data Kira gave us. It's like her field just decided to go crazy all at once." Kira was trembling inside the suit. Her scales were flashing through colors so fast that they looked white, and small arcs of electricity were dancing across the suit's surface. Her 4 eyes were wide with pain and terror. "The Reformation," she gasped. "It's starting." The old pattern is breaking down completely. This is the most dangerous part. Danny's fingers flew across his keyboard. The counterfield isn't strong enough. We need more power. But if I increase the output too much, the suit might overload. Laura looked at the readings on the screen. She was not an engineer like Danny, but she understood enough to see the problem. The suit was generating a counterfield at its maximum safe capacity. Kira's fluctuations were now beyond that capacity. The math did not work. They were going to lose her. But Laura had not spent 12 years in space by accepting impossible situations. What if we added a secondary field generator? She asked. Something to supplement the suit's output? We don't have another generator. The suit was built from all the parts we had. Laura's mind raced. There had to be something. There had to be some way to generate more electromagnetic energy. She looked around the equipment bay, searching for anything that might help. Her eyes landed on the station's main power conduit, running along the wall near the ceiling. "Danny," she said slowly, "what if we tapped into the station's power grid directly?" Danny stared at her. "That's insane. The station's power grid operates at frequencies designed for general station systems. It's not calibrated for biological applications. We could kill her. We could kill ourselves. Can you filter it?" "Maybe. I don't know. It would be incredibly dangerous." Laura looked at Kira. The small alien was barely conscious now. Her scales had gone almost completely dark, and her breathing was shallow and irregular. They were out of time. They were out of options. "Kira," Laura said gently, "we have an idea, but it's risky. Very risky. Do you want us to try?" Kira's 4 eyes focused on Laura with visible effort. "Will it hurt?" "I don't know." "Will it work?" "I don't know that either." Kira was silent for a moment. Then, very slowly, she nodded. "Try," she said. "Please try." Danny was already moving. He grabbed a power cable from the wall and began stripping the wires, his hands working with the speed and precision of years of training. Laura helped him, holding components in place while he made connections, handing him tools when he needed them. It took them 8 minutes to rig a direct connection between the station's power grid and the suit's field generator. 8 minutes during which Kira's readings continued to deteriorate. 8 minutes during which they all held their breath and prayed that they would be fast enough. "Ready," Danny said finally. "I've set up the best filtering I can manage with the equipment we have. It should convert the station power into something the suit can use. But I don't know if it will be enough, and I don't know if it will be safe." Laura looked at the connection. It was ugly and dangerous and probably violated about 50 station safety regulations. But it was their only chance. "Do it," she said. Danny activated the connection. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The suit suddenly blazed with light, its field generators humming at a frequency that Laura could feel in her teeth. Kira screamed, a sound that came through her translator as a burst of pure static that made the equipment bay's speakers crack. "Readings are off the charts," Danny shouted over the noise. "I can't tell if this is working or if we're killing her." Laura grabbed Kira's hand through the suit. She could feel the electricity dancing across her skin, making her hair stand on end and her muscles twitch involuntarily. But she did not let go. "Kira," she said loudly, "stay with us. You can do this." "Just hold on." The light grew brighter. The humming grew louder. The entire equipment bay seemed to vibrate with energy. Laura could see sparks flying from the power connection, and she knew that the whole system was on the verge of overload. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything went quiet. The suit's field generators settled into a steady hum. Kira's readings stabilized, the sparks stopped flying, and the lights in the equipment bay returned to normal. Danny stared at his screen in disbelief. "It worked," he whispered. "The reformation completed. Her new field pattern is stable." Laura looked at Kira. The small alien's scales were slowly cycling through soft colors, blue to green to purple, and back again. Her 4 eyes were closed, and her breathing was deep and steady. She was sleeping. She was alive. She was going to be okay. Laura sat down on the floor, her back against the wall, and started to laugh. It was a tired, relieved, slightly hysterical laugh, but she could not stop it. Danny sat down beside her and joined in. They had done it. With a modified radiation suit, a coffee maker heating element, and an insane connection to the station's power grid, they had saved an alien's life. It was the most human thing Laura could imagine. Kira slept for almost 6 hours after the volatile cycle ended. Laura and Danny took turns watching over her, making sure her readings stayed stable and the suit continued to function properly. Neither of them slept. They were too tired to sleep, too filled with the strange energy that comes after surviving something impossible. When Kira finally woke up, she was different. It was not just her scales, though they had changed, too. They were deeper now, richer, cycling through colors that seemed to glow from within. It was not just her movements, though they had a new grace to them, a confidence that had not been there before. It was something in her eyes, something in the way she looked at the world. She had gone through the volatile cycle, and she had come out the other side transformed. "How do you feel?" Laura asked, helping her out of the modified suit. Kira flexed her 6-fingered hands experimentally. Small sparks of electricity danced between her fingers, controlled and precise. "Different," she said. "Better. Stronger." She looked at Laura with all 4 of her amber eyes. "Alive. Because of you." Danny was already disconnecting the equipment, carefully storing the modified suit in case it might be useful again. "You should rest," he said. "Your body has been through a lot." "I will rest," Kira agreed. "But first I need to thank you both properly." She stood up straight, and even though she was still barely 3 feet tall, there was a dignity to her posture that made her seem much larger. "What you did," she said slowly, "should not have been possible. Velith scientists spend years developing stabilization technology. They use the most advanced equipment in the galaxy. They require extensive knowledge of the individual's unique field pattern. You had none of those things. You had crude human equipment, incomplete data, and a few hours of time. And yet you succeeded." Laura shrugged, a little embarrassed by the praise. "We just did what we had to do." "No," Kira said firmly. "It was more than that. I have studied many species since joining the exchange program. I have learned about the great civilizations of the galaxy, the ancient races with their vast knowledge, the powerful empires with their advanced technology. None of them would have done what you did. None of them would have tried." Danny looked up from his work. "What do you mean?" "The Velith would have mourned me," Kira said. "They would have said that it was a tragedy, that my early triggering was an unfortunate accident. But they would not have tried to save me with improvised technology. The risk would have been too great, the chance of failure too high. They would have accepted my death as inevitable." She paused, her scales shifting to a deep blue color that Laura had not seen before. "The Toreth would have done the same. The Crystalline Collective would have done the same. Every advanced species in this sector would have done the same. They would have calculated the odds, determined that success was unlikely, and chosen not to act." Laura felt uncomfortable. "We're not special," she said. "We just saw someone who needed help and tried to help. Anyone would do that." "No," Kira said. "They would not. That is what makes humans different. That is what makes you terrifying and wonderful at the same time. You do not calculate odds before helping someone. You do not weigh the costs and benefits. You simply act. You try. You refuse to accept that a problem cannot be solved." The equipment bay was quiet for a moment. Outside, the station's day cycle was beginning. Laura could hear the sounds of the station waking up, residents starting their daily routines, ships arriving and departing from the docking bays. "I am going to report what happened here," Kira said. "I am going to tell the Velith Consortium that humans saved my life with primitive technology and stubborn determination. Some will not believe me. Some will think I am exaggerating, but others will listen. Others will begin to understand." Over the next few weeks, Kira's prediction came true. Word of what had happened spread through the station and beyond. Velith scientists requested detailed specifications of the modified suit. A joint human-Velith research team was assembled to develop proper medical equipment based on human radiation shielding technology. Laura received commendations from both Earth's Unified Space Command and the Velith Consortium. Danny was promoted and given his own laboratory to continue his work on cross-species medical devices. The coffee maker heating element became something of a joke in engineering circles, a symbol of human creativity and improvisation. But what mattered most to Laura was the message she received from Kira 3 months later. The young xenobiologist had returned to her home world to complete her recovery, but she had not forgotten the 2 humans who had saved her life. "I have told everyone about what happened," the message said. "About the humans who saved my life with tools that should not have worked and determination that should not have been enough. Some still do not believe me, but others are beginning to understand what I learned on Station Meridian. Humans are small. Humans are fragile. Humans cannot sense the electromagnetic frequencies that bind the universe together. By every measure that my people use, humans should be a minor species, barely worth noticing. But humans never stop trying to help. They see a problem, and they solve it, even when solving it should be impossible. They see someone in need, and they act, even when acting seems foolish. They refuse to accept limits. They refuse to accept failure. They refuse to accept that anything is truly impossible. And somehow, against all logic, against all reason, they usually find a way. That is why humans have spread so far across the galaxy in such a short time. That is why the ancient races watch you with fear and fascination. That is why I am proud to call 2 of you my friends. Thank you, Laura and Danny. Thank you for not giving up on me." Laura read the message 3 times, then saved it to her personal files. She looked out the window of her quarters at the stars of the Meridian sector, glittering in the endless darkness of space. Out there were 1,000 civilizations, some ancient and powerful, some advanced beyond human understanding. They had technologies that could reshape planets and weapons that could destroy suns. They had knowledge that humanity was only beginning to discover. But they did not have what humans had. They did not have the stubborn refusal to give up. They did not have the crazy belief that any problem could be solved with enough creativity and determination. They did not have the simple, powerful urge to help someone in need, no matter the cost, no matter the odds. Laura smiled and turned away from the window. Somewhere on the station, there was probably another problem waiting to be solved, another impossible challenge that someone would say could not be met. She could not wait to prove them wrong.